Hello everyone, good to be here, first time in Minsk. I was asked to talk about management and how to manage a company in 2020, in the future. And I want to have like a discussion with you guys. It's not that big of an auditorium, so feel free to ask questions. We'll ask them at the front as well. But let's talk about first a little bit about the history of management, because to understand where we're going, we need to understand where we came from. And we're going to go a little bit back, maybe a little bit too far back for some. But when I think about management, I'm trying to figure out where did it come from? Why are we doing it? I really care about why we're doing anything. And to me, it's kind of a little bit hard when I imagine this picture that these guys coming back from the hunt went like, you know what? I think we need better management. I think I'm going to make you the headhunter of the hunting process, and then you will be the recruiter of the hunters. And then once we do all of that, we will then have an audit of the process of how we hunted to understand the efficiency of our hunting. I really doubt that that was the conversation. And I really doubt that they came up with management because we didn't need it back then. We were more interested in survival, getting food on the table. Everybody had a purpose back then. You didn't have a question when you wake up and go like, why do I do what I do? What's the meaning of life? To live, to survive, man. Like, get some food, kill somebody, that's it. There's no questions. You don't ask about, what's the meaning of life? What comes after death? No, you have to, live tomorrow. If you survive one day, that's a good thing. If you survive two, maybe a little better. So they really didn't care about management or purpose in life. I think we, as a society, are a bit lucky in a respect, or unlucky in some, that we have the chance to think about, why we do things. These guys just had to hunt and survive. So actually management was not really a thing back then. And when you look at the history, you go a bit further on, and do you think these guys developed management? No, they didn't. They developed slavery. Some people think that's management, but we didn't call it as such. And these guys were basically just telling people what to do, and that's it. Very simple way of doing that. Later on, these guys added a little bit of politics on top. But still, it was pretty much slavery. So there was no management the way we understand management today. And only in the late 1700s, or very technically speaking, late 1800s, we started thinking about management. And that is because of the Industrial Revolution. So we started doing, machinery. We started coming up with new ways of doing things, new technologies, right? And what was happening back then, you have to understand the mentality of people. There used to be farmers. And the farmers were very much the same as these guys during the Ice Age. They were, born with purpose. They have to feed their family. There was no question about why do I do things. And suddenly, there were other people who were creating machinery who were able to do what they do, but much more efficiently. It's not just factories that made, cars. That came much later. More importantly, it was things like on this picture, people gathering and making cotton much more efficiently. So everybody used to be, cotton maker back home, but then they had these guys to compete with. And at that time, they were like, well, how do I survive? I used to do this for generations, and I have to feed my family. And they were like, well, now I actually have to move somewhere to another city. I have to take a job and work at one of these places, one of these industrial centers, as they were known. And then basically, there's no more purpose. Right? The only purpose is to get money, to survive, to feed your family. And now we started questioning things. And this is when management came about, because a person without a purpose is, by definition, lazy. If you don't have a purpose, you're lazy. So the person who came up with the whole idea and the whole concept of management is Frederick Taylor, and he introduced scientific management. And the only thing that he based everything on, the whole management, is like this concept. People are lazy. And if people are lazy, we need to do something about it to be more efficient. We need to manage them, right? So he did, crazy things. He was looking at people in mines, and he was literally going like, you have to dig at 45-degree angle. You can use only your left arm to, lift it up. You have to move your body very specifically. And then he was saying that this is the best way to mine coal. There's no other way. You cannot make it better. This is the best way. I came up with it. I managed it. And then I have to figure out how to give that direction to everybody else. And that is where management comes from. This is how we develop management. And we continue to do that actually to this day. We basically think that people at the top know how to do things much better than anybody else. They come up with the best ideas and then they go tell people how to do it. These guys have no say in doing it, and then that's not very good, because then we get this picture. We get an idea that management knows everything, but the users or the people actually working with the end users actually know it much, much better. They understand it much better, but management thinks that, well, they know it all. They know everything. They have all the answers. And people who work, for some reason, don't actually understand anything about life. And to me, that's a little bit strange, you see. I am a manager per se, I'm a CEO of a company, and I don't understand why it is the way it is. So I had a situation at one point. I was coaching a corporation with more than 20,000 employees about innovation. And I was meeting their head of innovation in their company, and we were going to do a talk to the people about innovation. I was going to give them a talk. So here I am, I'm coming to the conference room, and I think I'm going to be talking to people. And all of a sudden, there's nobody there except the head of innovation. And I'm like, how am I going to give a talk to your people if you're the only one here? Oh no, we have this great conference system, right? It's going to be online. And I'm like, well, how do I know they're like participating? I'm like, no, they will, of course, they care about innovation. I'm like, okay, great. So, 10 people sign up. I don't know anybody, I can't interact with them. I talk, nobody asks any questions except 2 or 3 people who are quite kind of active. And then there's a break. And during the break, I come up to her and I'll be like, do you like this? Do you like this system of having conference calls with other people? And she goes like, I have no opinion on it. I'm like, what do you mean you have no opinion on it? You either like it or you don't. I'm like, well, I've been working for corporates for 20 years. They all have some version of it. I don't care. I'm like, why don't you care? Well, I stopped caring. I'm like, why did you stop caring? And basically what I saw in that interaction, and that there was zero motivation to change anything. There was zero motivation to change how things work. Like whatever the management gives them, they just do it and don't question anything at all whatsoever. And to me, that was, quite sad, because I saw a person who was clearly smart, who was head of innovation, but like didn't care about simple things like, how conference calls are made. And that made me, question things. And I realized that I think the AI revolution we're all talking about, it, we're afraid of losing jobs, actually happened already 100 years ago. Because we, by introducing all kinds of methods of managing people, made people into robots. Most of us have experienced it at least once in their lifetime, working for somebody. We're told what to do, we do it, we don't question it. If we do, we're punished. Management knows better. So management in some ways is basically making people into robots. And I think that that's not a good way to do things. And I think there's a better way. And I think we really need to pay much more attention to the way management is done. And then I went back. To the history. Well, actually, I went to Bali. So, didn't go that far back. I just went to a place that was a little bit different. And I saw farmers in Bali, and I had the chance to actually interview them and talk to them. And they were the happiest people I've ever met, right? They had a sense of purpose. From, the very morning they wake up. They still want to put, table on the food. Food on the table. Food on the table to people that they care about. They were happy, they knew what they were doing. Whereas we, in our society, actually very often when you ask people, what's the purpose in life? They're like, what do you mean? What purpose? Like, what kind of purpose? I want to make money, or something to that matter. And I think that is a problem, because once you start digging into that, that's not a very real purpose. For instance, this is, hopefully, everybody knows that this is Bill Gates. There might be some young people who not know who that is. But I'd like to think that everybody in this room is not very different from Bill Gates when it comes to, say, money. Right? We use pretty much the same computer. Some of you have a Mac, so maybe you use a better computer than Bill Gates. You have the chance to travel to different countries. You have almost everything that they have. There's not a big gap between what you have and what he has. There is a gap, sure, but it's not a very big one. And the important thing that I ask people, and I'd like to ask them, is this: I have this test about wanting any of these things, money, power, fame. I ask them two things, right? First, I'd like to ask them to imagine what would happen if they get it. Say you want to get, $1 billion, and you build a startup, and you get $1 billion. What next? What are you going to do? And many of them go, well, I'll be an artist. I'll be a philosopher. I will help people to, educate people. I'm like, well, why aren't you doing that now? Why aren't you helping people? Why don't you build an edtech startup? Another thing that I asked them about is a more important thing, is to run a test. Right? Whatever it is that you want in life, be it money, power, fame, anything, even if you want to have a good relationship, whatever it is that's bothering you. The funny thing is that you can find people who have it, but are completely depressed. Like, no matter what it is. If you know Notch, who was the founder of Minecraft, he sold it to Microsoft, got $1 billion, had a nervous breakdown, was depressed, was tweeting on Twitter that life changed, he has no more friends, nobody cares about him, and everybody cares about his money, right? Then you have a list of all these people. Adolf Merkler, a German billionaire, had more than $1 billion, one of the top 100 richest people in the world. Aizong of Jin, he was a Chinese emperor. Robin Williams, celebrity and an actor. Roh Moo-din, a former Korean president. What's common between them? Suicide. They all killed themselves, right? Out of depression. It's a bit sad, really, but the point is that whatever it is that you want, there are people who have it and are still depressed. So the things that you want, especially when it comes to money, power, fame, and anything like that, most likely that's not going to make you happy. I know a lot of founders, I work with a lot of startups, most of them who make an exit become extremely depressed in the first half a year because they have nothing to do in life. Only those who actually had a purpose and they don't care whether they make an exit, whether they make any money, they'll just do more of what they are already doing. Right? It doesn't matter to them. These are the guys who don't get depressed because they don't care. Right? They get $1 billion, they just spend $1 billion to do whatever it is they want to do. And what I think is important in that is that this purpose needs to come back. Like, how do you find it? How do you find this purpose and why is it important? Well, I think you need to come back to the tribe and tribal thinking. I think we as a society, when we were kind of growing, first, we had to solve the food problem, and we kind of did that for most of the world. We need to solve the survivor problem. We kind of did that. So after a while, we solved all these things. So right now, if you think of the world as a global tribe of 7-odd billion people, I think the important thing for finding purpose is to figure out what is the biggest problem to solve now for this tribe. And then am I the person who wants to solve that particular problem, given my skills and what I want? For me, it was a very long journey to get to that, but I know what my purpose is, and it's why I'm here when I come to Minsk and other events, is to talk to people and try to help them find the purpose. Put simply, I have a more elaborate and difficult explanation of that, but that's to sum it up. And I think, why is that important to management, right? Because I really believe that management in 2020 or whatever, in the future, is actually all about removing management altogether, like getting rid of it. Because I think we had the wrong concept to begin with. We said that people are lazy, therefore we need to figure out systems that will make them not lazy. Well, what if people aren't lazy to begin with? What if I only hire people who have a purpose? What if I only hire people who actually want to do things that I want to do, no matter what? Like, how are they going to act in that environment? So I believe that management in the future is more about creating environments and companies that are very purpose-driven. And that doesn't mean that they have to be, not for profit. I think they should be for profit, actually. It doesn't mean that they're all about only the nice things in life, right? You can find purpose in many things. So it's not about the specificity of that particular thing, but it is about having purpose and passion. It can be about gaming, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. If you believe entertainment is an important aspect of life. So for me, it's about creating guidance for people I work with and making them realize that their life matters. And I think there's a lot of companies, organizations, and people right now that show that this is actually a very successful approach. If any of you know a gaming company called Valve, they basically allow any employee to do anything, right? They literally have tables with wheels that you can like pick up and drive to any part of the company and join any team you want. You don't have to ask anybody, you don't have to do anything. You want to start making a new game, you just have to convince enough people to join you, right? That's it. There's no boss, there's no management at all. They have a founder called Gabe, and they are he is the founder, but he is not the manager, so to speak. Everybody still respects him as an elder, so he has influence in the company, but he doesn't like make decisions just by himself, right? He's like a guiding principle there. How are they doing? They are the most profitable company in the US per employee, right? So they have very little amount of people and they make like $4 billion, right? So the most profitable company in the US per employee, more profitable than Facebook per person. Company called Buurzorg is a company in the Netherlands, which is basically a company that provides nursing services for homes, right? So if somebody is sick and is at home and cannot do everything they need to do, they provide nurses who come to the house. And all of their competitors, they were basically doing it by the minute. So they did scientific management, which I talked about, and they had products. You come into the house, you have 2 minutes and 32 seconds to give a shot to the person, and you have to leave, because that's the product that they bought. So there's no interactivity, people don't care, the elderly that they're helping basically get a different nurse every single day. There is nothing to care about. But it was driven by the capitalistic thinking that you need to be more efficient. Well, what they did is they said, okay, we're going to cut away all the management, we're going to cut away all the support people, there's going to be no support. We're going to say the biggest team is 10 people, and the only people we hire are the nurses themselves. The nurses organize themselves in 10 people or so circles. They do all the hiring, all the finances, all the management. They decide which houses to go to, how much to charge, what products to offer, what skills do they need, everything. They have people in the company, 7,000 people in nurses and 20 people in the office. Most of these people in the office are just support. So in a sense, like if they need advice, if one of these circles needs an advice on legal help, they'll have a lawyer who can help them, right? So it's more about providing support and guidance. So that organization is thriving. They're now opening in Finland and in Sweden. And the interesting thing, again, like there's no management. There's nothing. I don't understand the concept of hiring somebody in order to manage them. If I'm hiring somebody, I don't want to manage them. I think it's a mistake if I'm hiring somebody who I also need to manage. I'm hiring the wrong person then. It doesn't make sense to me at all. Then there's the game called EVE Online. And that's actually not a company at all. This is a game. And why I put it here is because of the passion element, the purpose element. I used to play that game. And the interesting thing in that game is that there's some kind of fake, completely online organizations. Nobody pays them anything. That they're like between 3,000 and like 10,000 people organizations. Online. Nobody pays anybody to do anything. They have an onboarding process. I had to go through 3 interviews to be allowed to join a fake online organization. I had to do 3 interviews. I had to do an interview with the head of recruitment, then I had to do an interview with the guy who was in charge of fleet operations, and then I have to go on a fleet operations with the team and show them that I can fly a ship in space in an online game. I was like, really? After I got in, they had like 10 onboarding videos. They had a complete kind of guidance of how to be in the organization. And the support system in there, they had like a kind of Slack, but inside the game, so you can talk to everybody in the organization. If I had a question or a problem, the answer was like maybe 10 seconds. Somebody would help me right away. I don't know startups that run organizations that efficiently. I don't know that many startups. I know some, right? But there, it's people purely doing it out of passion, right? Like there's zero monetary benefit, nothing at all. It's a computer game. You get kind of zero value in the real world. There, you might be a very important CEO, right? But But even there, the best organizations are still the ones where the people actually flying are the ones in charge, and that was interesting to find. Then there's our organization, and I'm not going to say that we are completely into this fully, but we're getting there. And in our organization, even though I'm the CEO, it's a super flat structure. Yesterday, another girl from our organization, Inga, she ordered me to sign documents. She told me that I cannot raise my salary. Doesn't matter, right? Anybody can do it in my company to one another, and we discuss things together. We run our company in sprints, and everybody is equal. Everybody can change their what they do every second week. If we need to do that. All the finances are absolutely transparent. We send all our financial data to every single employee every month. When it comes to hiring, another important aspect is that I understood that when it comes to hiring, that I used to be the one hiring people, and then I realized that that's a mistake. Because when I was hiring people, then I wasn't actually hiring people for them, right? So what I mean is, when I'm interviewing somebody to work at my company, they're going to spend most of their time not working with me, but with other people in the company. So I realized, why am I the one interviewing people if they're not going to work with me? So now the whole team interviews people. So basically what we did is that people apply to our company, and it's actually fully anonymous. I don't want to know their age, sex, position, LinkedIn, CV, nothing at all. They just answer 13 questions. I look at them, and we look at them as a team. We rank them, and we invite the ones we like the most to the pitching stage. And it's not an interview. They come, and there's our whole team giving cookies and tea, and then every person pitches to the whole team, and we have a chat. And everybody pitches, and they all see each other who also pitches, so they know the competition as well. And then we all go to lunch together to discuss things. And then based on that, the team actually selects who they want to work with. I have basically no say in the process at all. I just want to help to get as many good applicants as I can, and they actually make all the choices in what we're going to do. So in our sense, it's the same thing, right? I don't see the point in management that is hierarchical. And what that does is actually, it creates a feeling of full responsibility. Everybody in the team and in the company is fully responsible for the company. It's not just me. If they have the purpose, they also are responsible. If we're not successful, everybody is responsible, not just the CEO. And if we're doing very well, again, everybody is part of the team. Everybody made that happen. And that is why it's very, very important. And that's why I think that hiring people who are based on purpose and passion is the best way to grow and to create good companies right now. And the interesting thing is that everybody starts to recognize it. Google made a study and said, well, actually, there is absolutely no way we can keep top CEOs in the company other than giving them purpose. No amount of money, no amount of anything will keep anybody working for Google if there is no purpose. Because there's no point. They can work anywhere at any company for any salary they want. But I think it's becoming true at lower levels of salary as well in our society. So the moment I realized that in my company there's a need for management, somebody is asking, hey, I need more processes to be managed, then then I either hired the wrong person or they lost their purpose, right? They don't know why do they live their life and what's the purpose of their life. And then we have to have a lot of philosophical discussions over tea and try to figure that out. Because the only reason this happens is if people don't have it. It doesn't happen with people who know why they're doing it. They take full responsibility for everything that happens to them all the time, not just at work, right? They know that they can control the environment to the full. As an example, it can be very, very small things. For instance, here today, just before I started the talk, there was maybe 10 people here, and I needed a micro SD card, a simple micro SD card. That's what I needed. If I was here maybe 10 years ago, I'd be like, God damn it, I don't have a micro SD card. And that's it. And I'm not gonna have it. Right? But when I take full responsibility for everything that happens to me, I'm I need it, so I'm gonna go up to this guy, take the microphone, and ask everybody in the room if somebody has a micro SD card, because that's what I need. right? And that's exactly what happened. And somebody gave me, that gentleman over there, gave me a micro SD card, which is now here, and it's recording the talk, right? And it wouldn't happen if I didn't take full responsibility for everything that I do. And the more people I find like that, the more efficient and more fun the job becomes. And then people can do anything. So in that sense, there was also studies that proved that kind of these social skills and purpose skills actually increase productivity by a lot, because then you don't have to do anything. Imagine if everybody had that feeling that they can actually influence any part of the company, even bus drivers. I think bus drivers are actually a completely undervalued job. They provide more value to our society than most of us. In one day they transport 1,000, maybe 2,000 people from A to B, which generates, millions of revenues. If they didn't do it, would have to walk, right? So in some sense, they provide a lot more value. But if they had the power to suggest and really influence how we do, say, transportation, I think they would be the ones who would figure out the best way to do it. But nobody listens to them. It's just, you just drive from A to B. That's the best route, and you have to make 7 stops, even if there's nobody there, right? And then they just do it and don't question it. But people who adopt this mentality, they start having a different approach to life. They start having a different approach to running companies. So if I was that lady that I talked about in the conference room with that problem, and I didn't like it, I would be like, hey guys, can we fly together once a month? Or how about we use Slack instead? Or what if we introduce a new system in place for having calls? What if we say always have video on? I would find a solution. I wouldn't just be like, oh, it's okay, I don't care. I would definitely force the organization to change and change with me. And if they don't, then I leave. And that is the problem, because I think this is where we're going. I think in 2-3 years, more and more people will want to have a job that is also purposeful. And if the job doesn't do it, they will just leave. Now, what's the point? I can work anywhere. It used to be the case where the employer was the person who could choose anybody to work for them. And now, more and more, it's the employee who can work for anybody they want. So now you're in competition with all these people. And if there's a choice to work just for the money, or for the money and purpose, you're always going to choose the latter. So if you're not going to adapt your startups and your organizations to purpose-driven businesses, I think in the long term, you're going to lose a lot of good potential employees, and it's going to have a really bad impact on your startup and how you do things. So my remaining question to you guys is whether you want to remain being a robot in this society and just do whatever everybody tells you to do and your organizations and your society as a whole, or are you going to start questioning everything that happens to you and start making a real impact, whether it's getting a micro SD card or changing what seat you sit on? It doesn't matter, but I believe that it's time to start really figuring out what your purpose in life is and how you can make sure that you live through it in your company. Thanks. I think we have time for some questions.
Thank you. I totally agree that you have to take full responsibility for your life and your choices, but as a person who last year went through a lot of interviewing people, thank you, I find it a dangerous statement to claim that you should hire people only those people that strive for purpose. Because at least in my experience, you have to hire people that would be a good fit in total. So if a person is motivated only by money, like a Landsknecht or something, he may be a perfect fit for your company, but he would still be motivated only by money. Could you find somebody better? Well, perhaps yes, but would you be better off hiring him than continuing to search for somebody better?
It depends what your purpose in life is.
Yeah, totally. But I'm talking about like a product that you want to develop.
But why do you want to develop the product?
That is another question.
It is a very important question.
I'm not going to develop a product to make the world a better place.
Well,
at least for everybody.
So, okay, you're not going to develop a product that makes the world better, but is there a purpose for it for you?
Absolutely.
What is it?
Glory, money.
Excellent. So, okay, we can do the experiment right here. So what are you going to do once you have glory and money?
More glory and more money.
And then what?
More glory and more money.
Okay. And do you know
And
where
then I die.
And you know where that rabbit hole leads?
To death.
Exactly.
Every sin leads to death.
Yes, that is true. But in death lies beauty as well. The problem, I believe, is that if you chase that rabbit hole of glory and money, you can, you're young right now, but eventually, most people realize that it's not enough. Most people eventually, especially when they get it, it's actually a very, very good engine for anybody to do anything in the beginning. But once you get it, that's where problems start, right? I'll give you a personal example. I was not driven by glory and money, but I was driven by something else. I was driven by relationships, right? I wanted to have a good relationship and a good family. I know it's very different, but bear with me for a second. And through that was my key in life. I was like, if I get that, I will be fully happy. I will be 100% happy, and that's it, right? And then eventually I realized that if I were to pursue that path, right, that means I think that somebody else can somehow fix my life. And the more relationships I had, the less it was happening. And only when I realized that I can only make myself happy and not another person can make me happy, first did I get the relationship that is worthy of that. It's the best relationship I've ever had because I actually don't need anything from it. And also it created a problem because now I don't have that engine, right? I had that engine where I was like, I'm doing everything just to have a good relationship. Now that I have a good relationship and I actually know that I don't need it, the engine is gone. And I have to build a completely new engine that runs me and motivates me, right? And that process was actually painful and difficult because if you are driven by something for your whole life, say money, and eventually you either get it or you realize that you don't need it, right? Then you have to recreate your whole existence from scratch. And you have to like figure out how are you gonna do anything, because most people who get money actually go like, okay, I'm not gonna do anything at all anymore, or they chase it for a while and then they become miserable in the end anyways.
Well, quoting Grant Cardone, it's much better to be unhappy with a ton of money than unhappy and poor.
Yes, but what if there was another way?
I'll figure it out.
I think, look, if you choose poor and unhappy or rich and unhappy, yes, it is, an order of a small degree better, perhaps.
No.
But at the same time, I believe that there is a way to actually be happy. And you don't need to chase something. You don't need to go somewhere. You live right now. Like, you can be happy right now. You don't need to think about the future or the past, right? Because if you are not happy in this very moment, right now, in this room, you will never be happy.
I totally disagree. It's a question of philosophics.
Yeah, I love philosophy. It's a good thing that you disagree.
And this is the approach of Stoicism, that you have to take some shit in your life to be better off in the future.
It is a Stoicism. Seneca is my favorite philosopher. But the thing is, basically, what I've seen that people do when they go through the process you're describing is that eventually they run out of steam. And eventually they start questioning, well, what's the meaning behind that? Right? What is the meaning behind money? What is the meaning behind what I have? And then they have to rediscover themselves. You're probably not going to do it today, and that's totally fine. But I do believe that one day it might come. And it's a question worth asking.
Yeah, but my initial question was about like hiring people. And totally,
yes.
I agree that someday you might rediscover yourself. You might want to take a trip to.
Yes.
Don't know,
if you hire people that are absolutely driven by money, there's a chance you will make money. Sure, I'll give you that. But there is also a chance that it will drive you to your depression. So, I mean, yes, you can hire people absolutely driven by money. You can do the scientific management approach and tell people exactly what they do, right? And there's still people like that who are actually thinking that way, and that's totally fine. And you can make money, but most likely after you do that, you will start questioning things. And my argument is, in that regard, is that the longer we, like for example in Finland right now, where the average salary is 3.2 thousand euros, there's less and less people who are only driven by money, right? So your pool of recruitment just scientifically speaking, will shrink. Because the best people will start working for companies that have purpose. And then you'll just have a smaller amount of people you can choose from. So it's, even if you want to make money, it might not be the best option in the long term.
Sorry, but I think you missed the point. My point was that you should not hire people based only on like motivation and purpose, because it's a bitch finding someone who is motivated, who is purposeful, etc., etc. So during the process, you have to be okay with something less.
Hiring is an unsolved problem. The best hiring method, and I've studied hiring a lot, the best hiring method that exists today is basically intelligence. So the general intelligence is the best predictor of performance that there is. So if you want to have people who will perform, you just have to hire smart people, right? But I believe, and that's my belief, it's not proven, that if I hire smart people who are purpose-driven, I will overperform. And that's my theory, right? I'll run the statistics and eventually see if that's true. But my belief is that if I hire smart people who are purpose-driven, I will have a much more efficient organization.
Well, yeah, but you're based on... Sorry.
Let's have a chat after this.
Sure,
I'll be happy to continue. I would love to do it, but I think we have another speaker coming up.
Thank you very much, Dima, for such vivid and also personal presentation. So your applause to Dima. And yes, sure, please feel free to chat with him afterwards.
If you guys have any questions, I also have, I don't know, there was this last slide. You can find me on Telegram. I have a channel where you can ask me any question, and I promise that I will write like almost a blog post answer and do all the research, because that's the way of interacting and learning. So if you want, I'm always happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much.